Today I will be featuring another ranked commentary. Couldn't feature one yesterday because, well, my neighbor decided it was the perfect time to do some sort of drilling at his place, so it was right on the other side of my PC wall, and I decided I would spare my viewers the sound of that incessant noise. Regardless, today I am featuring the Molotov. Now, the Molotov as a ship is a ship I didn't recommend for ranked, and it's a ship after I have been playing it significantly this ranked season. I still can't say I recommend it. It has some strengths. Well, it has one strength really, and that is the main guns. The main guns on this ship are great. The weaknesses are pretty much everything else about the ship. Now, I'm playing on the Russian server, so the first thing I do is ask this Farragut, Enfresh. I say, smoke, fog, question mark. For some reason, Russians seem to understand fog better than smoke. I don't know if there's some sort of translation thing going on there, but usually a couple of them have called smoke fog, so I tend to ask for both smoke and fog, and they tend to understand it. He says he wants to smoke me later, and I ask now, and I really want him to smoke up now. And this is something you see quite often actually in ranked these days, and that is DDs trying to dictate where they want their team to go by placing the smoke in very risky positions. And please don't do this. This is, I really wanted to smoke now. I'd love to have the smoke right now, because I know I'm about to get detected. I know my own concealment, I know my own spotting ranges, I know the map. So I know I'm about to get detected, and I would love to have a smoke right here where I'm now, so I would get undetected. But instead, the Farragut is about to spot me, and since I'm spotted, I might as well open fire. And this is something you see quite often where DDs, they try to delay and they try to be too clever with their smokes, when most of the time you just want it as a line of sight cover. You just want some cover, and you don't want to push in too deep. Now, he laid his smoke all the way inside the cap. If the enemy had been pushing this cap, I couldn't even have used this smoke, because it would be too aggressive. Now, Battleship shoots HE at me, and it actually breaks my engine, so I'm forced to repair so I can actually make it into the smoke. And, okay, Shinonome kills one of our Farraguts, and unfortunately, even when I was undetected, I get hit again and set on fire. And that is, of course, that engine braking is, of course, one of the weaknesses. This hull is squishy, it breaks the engine breaks very easily, it's extremely easily citadel because the armor is so thin, so it's just really rough. And now, so they tried to shoot the Leander, or was it, no, the La Galissonière that sailed into the smoke, and they accidentally hit me. So I got the double fire, broken engine, and no repair available. So, and our Shinonome has team killed our Farragut. Now, of course, I'm gonna, because of this fire, I'm obviously going to lose half my health. Now, this would have been pretty preventable if the Farragut had just popped the smoke exactly where I requested it. But this is something I've been seeing a lot in these last couple of days, and that's people really not respecting the wishes of the people who request the smoke, and instead trying to be too clever about them. And I've seen this both on the NA server and on the Russian server, and this is of course played on the Russian server. I've been seeing a lot of these overly clever attempts at smokes, and the thing is, people don't take into account that first of all, cruisers have different spotting ranges, which means you cannot place the smoke in the same way as you would for a DD. You have to take into account multiple things. First of all, you want to be undetected when you get into the smoke. You don't want to get undetected by the smoke itself. You want to get undetected by the time you sail into the smoke, so that the enemy doesn't know you're there. You want to leave them guessing. You want to keep this random factor available, so the enemy doesn't really know what's in that smoke. Because if they see multiple ships sail into that smoke, well, that's like putting up a red flag for every single enemy DD. Please come and torp the smoke, you can hit multiple ships. And that's of course not something you want. You want to keep it a surprise. Also, if they don't know how many people are in your smoke, they also don't know where your ships are on the map. So they have to be careful that some ship doesn't pop around the corner and surprise them. Whereas if every single 7 ships on the enemy team is spotted, well, of course you know where they are, so you know you can play very aggressively around areas where they're not. So this kind of information is also a key role here. Might be a bit too stubborn trying to use the AP here. Hoping this Cleveland will give some broadside. Probably should have used HE there to make sure I got a fire on him or something. The damage is okay. Too many bounces though. HE would have ultimately been better. But I've even had situations where I've straight up been forced to say no, I can't use your smoke. Like Adidi would push into a cap and then he would lay the smoke inside the cap and he'd say, this is for you. And I just have to say, I can't use it, sorry. I'm not even going to use it. And then you go, well, why aren't you using my smoke? I laid this smoke for you. And they don't understand that you have to think further regarding the smokes, because what happens when the smoke runs out? That's what you have to keep in mind. If you push into a cap and if you push into a smoke that's set in the middle of the cap, in the middle of the open, you're only safe as long as that smoke exists. Once that smoke fades, well, you're stuck in the middle of the cap as a squishy cruiser with no escapes. And that's of course a disaster, because everyone is going to focus you as soon as it runs out, and having to rely on some other teammate to smoke you up. I mean, we see smoking mistimings happening in competitive play. I'm not going to trust my life in the hands of a ranked random player that needs to smoke up the exact time when the previous smoke is fading. I simply don't. You can't place that much faith in them. So ultimately, people need to play a bit safer with their smokes and stop trying to be overly fancy and instead just play it more safe. And in this case, of course, it cost me half my health. Now, our Farragut, the guy who led the questionable smoke, at least he managed to get a kill. But in return, our Galissonier charged up through B alone to fight all of them and got killed. And this is also another thing. You know what? I'm playing very safe. This is what you want. This is how you want to play cruiser rank. You want to be undetected as much of the game as possible. You never want to be spotted. If I could spend an entire ranked game, 20 minutes of a ranked game, hiding behind an island, not being spotted and able to fire at all times, I would be ecstatic. That would be the optimal situation. Like, hallelujah. Perfect game. Because cruiser's strength is in DPM. The strength you bring to ranked is damage. Damage, damage, damage. Your DPM numbers are much higher than a battleship's DPM numbers. Battleships have tankiness and they have the alpha strike. The cruiser, you bring damage over time. And this is what you want to bring to bear in a battle. And of course, your ability to harass DDs is a key here. I've seen some players complain, especially battleship players. It tends to always be battleship players. They complain about cruisers being pussies and hiding behind islands and calling them campers. Like, if a battleship player tells this to you, where you're in a position like this, where you basically are covering your own cap, you're pretty much able to shoot any enemy ship if they are spotted. In a position like this, and someone calls you a camper, just ignore them. They are absolute idiots. They are straight up idiots. You don't need to pay any attention. It's so stupid to complain about camping cruisers, because cruisers need to play defensive. Now, we're down 4 versus 5 at this point, and my New Mexico, as you can see, is sailing away towards the 10 line. Is probably a bot or AFK, whereas my Fuso is on the 1 line. New Mexico, completely useless, probably a bot or AFK or DC'd or whatever, regardless, so we're pretty much 3 versus 5. My Fuso is a stock Fuso, but at least is serving as a bait for the enemy team, because the enemy team for some reason really want to go and kill him instead of taking the cap. Well, they had a couple of people here who wanted to take the cap, and I spot the Budionni coming around the corner. I had AP loaded for this occasion, and of course here we see the strength, one of the great strengths of the Molotov, which is the firepower, which is what you want to be using as much as possible. Since the Shinonome does decide to smoke up, and the Budionni is still spotted, I might as well keep harassing this Budionni. I'm hoping to get another similar volley like the one I got earlier, but RNG gods do not agree with me, and I only get 1 citadel. I still have, I think, 1 more chance to shoot him, but he is about to glide. He's about to glide into protection, and sadly, I'm not able to finish him off. So that is a shame. Still though, I'm gonna keep harassing these cruisers. This position I'm in, you see the island protects me from the Shinonome torps. If the Shinonome wants to torp me, I would get spotted. That's very important to note here. If the Shinonome wants to shoot me, torp me from a location, he needs to leave his smoke, and that would mean I would get detected. So I know that I'm safe in this position until I get detected. I'm basically using his concealment against him at this point. As soon as I get detected, I know I have to accelerate into cover, but until then, I'm just going to keep maintaining this position. And I'm using these railguns now to harass this Cleveland as much as possible, since even though we are in a very, very tough position, you should never give up, because it is ranked and pretty much anything can happen. Oh, he's slower than I thought, but I pop spotter plane for additional range, since I want to keep harassing him at all times, and of course I don't want to charge into the smoke. Why would I charge into a smoke DD? That's also something I see a lot of people do, charge into smoked up DDs. Why would I do this? The best case scenario is I get a trade. I kill him and then he torps me. That's a horrible trade. Why would I want to trade 1 for 1? I wait for the smoke to fade, and at this point Shinonome spots me and I spot him in return. There's his torps. Let's count his volleys. Shinonome has 3, 3, 8, 3, 3, 3. Okay, so that's all 9 of his torps. Now I can chase him full speed without issues. And now here, of course, the great turret placement, having so many turrets in the front, 6 of them, and of course the railguns show their strength. It's very easy to consistently land shells with the Shinonome. And because you have such heavy hitting HE, you tend to break stuff all the time, and you tend to set stuff on fire all the time. This Shinonome has already used his repair, and I've got him on fire. I got his engine broken, so he's moving slower, and I even dare to bring my broadside to bear to harass him even further. And he really, what can I do at this point? He hits 5 shells, that's my high caliber, and he gets killed. Our New Mexico set is still humping the border. With the 10 line there, you can barely see him, so we're kind of 2 versus 4. But I think we have managed to get a good position at this point. And of course, since the enemy team has moved away further this way, I chase them, but I'm not gonna like chase them so I get spotted myself. No, as I said, as a cruiser, your primary objective is to use terrain to your advantage at all times. So why would I let myself get spotted here, when I can just as well slow down, use the terrain to my advantage, and shoot them while remaining unspotted. This is of course bread and butter how you play cruiser. Especially so on a ship like the Molotov. The Molotov is, for the reason I don't recommend the Molotov in ranked is multiple. First of all, as I said, the squishiness. You saw my engine breaking from HE, and in general it's very, very easy to citadel. Another reason why I don't recommend the Molotov is it's so incredibly clumsy. It has an 890 meter turning circle. I'm pretty sure that's worse than all other battleships at this tier. Just for even Fuso, I think Fuso has a 740 meter turning circle. So you gotta understand that this is the worst handling ship, including the battleships. That's how terrible the handling on this ship is. The Molotov handles absolutely abysmally. So of course, when you have a massive turning circle and you have a huge citadel and you have squishy broadside armor, that means of course it's very easy to get caught broadside, and because of these citadel issues you very easily get deleted when caught broadside, and because of the thin armor, even while angling you can eat a lot of damage. So the Molotov relies extremely heavily on intelligent positioning, and that's of course what you're seeing here, because I still want to be able to use the guns. The guns are the strength. The more you can use the guns, the more you're proving your value in this ship. And of course, the less you show yourself, the less you put yourself at the risk to suffer from all the issues that the hull has. Another issue the ship has is absolutely abysmal anti-air. We are talking complete garbage anti-air, and that's of course the reason why I run defensive AA. It's not so much that I expect to be able to help my team out by shooting down many planes or help really defend them, because with AA range is also garbage. It's more the fact that you need it to protect yourself. Carriers will drop Molotovs. Like, don't be surprised if a carrier goes for you, because if I played a carrier and I saw Molotov, I would go for him. If he has Hydro, it's a guaranteed kill. Like, it's straight up a guaranteed kill. You can't outturn the torpedo bombers, and if you don't have defensive AA, your AA won't shoot down pretty much any planes, so he can just the carrier can straight up kill you. He has no torpedo belt, you only have 28k health, so you only need to really land a couple of torpedoes with the torpedo bomber and this guy is dead. So you have to pretty much run defensive AA as a safety measure to make sure you don't get wrecked. So that's something I highly, highly recommend. If you feel so confident that you won't face a single carrier, of course Hydro is an option, but keep in mind you are putting yourself at a massive risk. Now, we managed to kill off the rest, and I'm harassing the Fuso since I don't want him to sail back to A. I want him to move away from A. At the time, I played with the idea of going into A and capping it, but since the Fuso started sailing this way, it was better to just start harassing him and encourage him to stay away from the cap instead of pushing into A and risking my life at this point. We already have a lead, so don't take unnecessary risks. I popped the spotter plane to get vision of what these guys are doing. That's a very important point there, by the way. If you have a lead, don't take unnecessary risks. That's how simple it is. You have a lead, the game is in your favor, why take stupid risks? That's the only thing you achieve with this risk is a chance of losing. When you take risks and you're in a lead, you're not risking the only thing you're risking is your victory. That's really what you're doing. You are taking a completely unnecessary risk, and the only thing that's at stake is you losing. So that's something you always need to keep in mind when you consider, should I do this move? Take a look at the scoreboard. At this point we have 989 points, so this game is about to be a win. And speaking of stupid risks, our Shinonome is so greedy for damage. So greedy to do damage, he gets himself killed. And this is something I see very often as well. A DD wants to do something fancy. He wants to make a play. He wants to farm damage. He wants to do something special. So instead of playing safe and spotting, which was pretty much what I wanted him to do at this point, he tries to go for some super play with the torps. He gets spotted and he gets killed. A greedy, stupid play that has high potential of losing us the game. I go into the enemy cap to prevent them from gaining any more points. And most of all, because I need to stay in cover. I can't let them spot me. I'm waiting here. I'm actually not going to sit here and torp, because you got to keep in mind, when you go into a cap, the enemy knows exactly where you are. So any battleships coming around this corner will obviously have their guns aimed my way. So having torps doesn't matter. Guns are faster than torps. They will instantly delete me and win the game before my torps can even reach them. So I only wait a few seconds, and then I go right fully behind the island like this. And there should be no chance of them having any chance of shooting me from either angle. And despite the horrid start with the scruffy smoke at the start and our team killing Shinonome and our AFK in New Mexico, like holy hell, what a team, we do manage to squeeze out a victory in this game. One can question, of course, how many of my team members actually deserve this victory, but we did manage to squeeze it out. Damage isn't the most impressive, but what was quite important in this game was the positioning. We can look at the team score, 1.8k base XP, once again not the craziest, but then again we look at our New Mexico, 156 and he gained a star. And we have our Galisonier who charged in for no reason. The Farragut though I feel sorry for, he just got team torp, not really much he can do. The other Farragut, of course, he was the one with the very questionable smoke on the way. So this game kind of showed, this was the 10 to 15 bracket, and this showed many issues as well. The enemy's positioning was awful. It showed you the trap that happens when you focus too heavily on hunting kills instead of focusing on the objective. You might note that our Fuso, he was a stock Fuso, and his positioning was god-awful. He sailed all the way to the left-hand corner. The worst possible positioning for a Fuso ever, especially a stock one. He's in the open, he's against multiple DDs, he's literally a free kill. But the enemy team committed so heavily to kill him. They got so blinded by that free kill in the Fuso that they threw away all their resources to hunt him. And by the time they had killed him and turned around, most of the game had already gone by, and I was able to kill off their Shinonome without any backup helping him. I was able to force away the Budyonni. I was able to use cover against both the Cleveland and the enemy Budyonni and just harass them. They lost all map positioning because they focused their kills instead of objectives. And that's a very good lesson to learn. What wins games in ranked is holding the capture points, not kills. Kills come in after you have taken and held the objectives. Once you have that, then we can talk about kills. Until then, don't go hunting for some kill in somewhere off or completely off the map. That just throws it. Detailed report, not really much potential damage, not surprising. After I ate that initial damage and some Budyonni damage, I really didn't eat anything else because, well, positioning is highly important. AP did pretty much same HE and AP damage. and a bit of fire, but really not the best luck with fires, honestly. 11 fires, but only 18k damage. You can of course get some significantly higher damage games, but I thought this game really showed both the strengths and the weaknesses of the Molotov quite well. Anyway, let me highlight my recommended build for this ship. Right, starting off, we of course have the recommended build. Not much we can talk about module-wise. You should absolutely be running priority damage control, premium damage control, not priority. And if you can afford it, premium defensive AA as well. And finally, spotter plane once again, if you can afford it. But if you're playing a premium, you shouldn't really have issues with consumables. Upgrade-wise, priority 1, main armaments mod 1. Priority 2, I would probably run AA guns mod here. The only reason I'm not running it, because my Russian account, I'm kind of strapped for cash on this account right now, since I've been rebuying the Bayern, so I can make a commentary on the Bayern as well. But ultimately the AA guns mod is better than the aiming system mod on cruisers, for the simple reason that minus 7% dispersion is a very small deal for a cruiser, because your dispersion is already so incredibly good, whereas this of course have a significantly higher impact on battleships, because battleships have significantly worse dispersion. So in general this is a fairly useless thing for cruisers, and I highly recommend running the AA guns mod 2 instead. Steering gears, because you don't want to be losing those steering gears, they break quite easily, just like the engine does, but in general losing the steering gears can be even worse, because then you can't angle, and if you're forced to turn broadside in the ship, you pretty much instantly explode. And finally, of course, better rudder shift, because as I said, your turning circle is completely abysmal in this ship at 860 meters, so at least try to improve your rudder shift as much as possible. Captain perks wise, first one is of course priority target. You need to know how many people are shooting at you, who are focusing you. Follow it up with adrenaline rush, because your turret traverse is so good, 22.5 seconds, means that you don't need expert marksman at all, so you can completely skip it. Follow it up with higher fire chance, and then follow it up with concealment expert, so you get your stealth down to a somewhat manageable 11.2. Now at this point, many people would spec into IFHE, but IFHE is terrible in ranked for a Molotov. This is something I highlighted in my ranked build, or my recommended ranked builds for different ships, but I might as well repeat it in this one, since it's a very important point. Do not spec IFHE on the Molotov in ranked. It's very good for random battles. Why is it good for random battles? Because when you hit tier 7 and tier 8 battleships, like you might often do in random battles, they often have 32mm armor, and speccing IFHE increases your HE penetration from 30mm to 39mm, which means of course you can pen 32, so that's why it's worth getting it in randoms. In ranked, however, the ships you face are pretty much all coated in 25mm armor, and in fact the ships where it would help, like let's say the Bayern top armor, is 40mm. So even without IFHE you can't pen it, and if you spec IFHE you still can't pen it, so you actually gain nothing out of it. Whereas other ships like New Mexico, let's take New Mexico as an example, it's such a popular ship in ranked this season. If we look at the armor in this thing, 25, everything is 25mm, so there's no point speccing IFHE, because you're already able to pen everything that you can pen in this ship. So obviously in the Molotov you should not spec IFHE, because all you do is you lose 3% fire chance and you gain absolutely nothing in return. So what would you spec at this point? Well, personally I would probably go Vigilance. Your rudder shift is terrible, better chances dodging torps is very welcome. After Vigilance, then you probably have some freedom. I would get a Direction Center, because those double spotter planes give you a lot of additional vision on the map, which can be very useful. Preventive maintenance is never bad on cruisers, because turrets tend to get knocked out constantly. You might even go last stand on the Molotov because of how squishy engine and rudder are. Alternatively, you could spec AFT for better range on your anti-air, as the AA is, as I said, pretty damn bad. In fact, I think you have one good aura, and yeah, that's this one, this 37mm. This aura deals somewhat decent damage, but you literally need the AA mod range and AFT to make it somewhat decently ranged. So that's possibility to like counter that weakness. Alternatively, you could even go for the cheeky RPF, because why not? You have the freedom to do so, because you really don't need IFHE, unlike many other cruisers. The only other ones that don't need it are the Nürnberg and the Graf Spee, I think, and the Iowa. Pretty much all the other ones really want IFHE. So you have a lot of freedom in this case. Which one you ultimately choose is entirely up to you. And since this commentary is getting pretty damn long here, I'll just show you the recommended signals. Signal wise, it's pretty straight up cruiser. First of all, detonation. This is ranked. For randoms, I wouldn't bother, but for ranked, dying to a detonation is of course a huge problem for your team. You want to increase your speed. You want to lower the cooldown on your consumables. This isn't as important. AA is quite a good perk, but I don't really run it on the Molotov because, as I said, the AA is already so garbage. And of course these two flags, India X-Ray and Victor Lima for the increased fire chance. So if you're gonna run 4 flags, run Juliet, Sierra and the 2 fire flags. Those are the priorities. Everything else after that is kind of flavor. Anyway, that was my Molotov commentary. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you guys later.